Welcome to the Infinite Creative Podcast. This is a special one today because I think we're going live right now, and we should have audio, and everything should be fine. But yeah, Sean, how you doing, my man?
Doing good, doing good. Here for the first live episode on YouTube. So yeah, it's a total test. We're either going to be in kind of a live state here, or we're not going to show up at all. So this could just go out into the infinite and never exist. This whole episode,
Yeah.
it'll be interesting.
So for everybody who's on the YouTube channel, it's always good to subscribe because then you get the notification, and then that basically allows you to see the live stream and see what we're up to. Obviously, this is now a little bit off the cuff, and a lot of things are changing and happening because Sean is coming down here to Florida this weekend, or?
Yeah. So we're I'm going to be down there in Florida, so we're going to have another live episode, another few live episodes. So it'll be cool to record live in the flesh down in Florida, where I'll be sweaty and covered in mosquito bites.
Just how we like it, because like Florida is quite interesting. Obviously, what are the key things you're looking forward besides like obviously the girlfriend?
Yeah, obviously the girlfriend, but the beach. I love the beach. I'll probably be on the beach within the 48 hours of being there, which is funny because everyone in Florida will be like, it's too cold to go to the beach. But for me, coming from Colorado, I'll be like, shit, it's like 60. This is perfect.
Yeah, I believe that.
So go to the beach, probably ride a bike around, go to the co-working space, things like that. Maybe hit up some of the old people I used to design with there in town. So I haven't shouted them out in a long time. So hopefully, hit them up and maybe just get into some galleries. There's a lot of networking events as well down there that I'm going to go to. So we'll see. It should be interesting. Yeah, I'm going to go to the Muse Awards down there. It's like a big creative awards in St. Pete. Gasparilla is happening down there while I'm down there for once, which never happens while I'm there. So I'm excited, man. It's going to be a lot of fun stuff.
Yeah, I'm excited as well, because like obviously it's good to have like you back down here, but also like from the creative aspect, I kind of need to go out more and do the more networking because I feel like I was lacking on that, and it can't happen. We gotta slay the game.
Yeah. Well, you know me, man. I'm always slacking on the networking. That's always the one thing I cut off my list. It seems like when I get too busy during the day, I'll be like, we don't have to go to that thing. So I'm with you, man. It's always easy when you have friends, right? When you have someone to go with you. I know for me, it makes the biggest difference walking in somewhere with someone. Sometimes I get that weird fear of just walking in somewhere completely alone, and everyone gives you that look like, why the heck are you here? And that's my biggest fear in the whole world.
I mean, on that note, that is one of the things where you're just in your head, and you think because everybody has that feeling, I feel like, and because everybody has that feeling, it's kind of nulliated or not really there or nullified, because like if everybody thinks it's not a real thing, but obviously excited about that, also excited for the live podcast, and I'm very curious how this is turning out right now, because like who knows. If you have a question, comment down below on the YouTube channel, because we're live, we're out here, we're doing this. But yeah, so what I had for topics in mind, I think I texted you already. So we're going a little bit off the cuff, and obviously, again, AI, and that kind of is probably none of your favorite topics right now, or Sean?
Yeah, this guy's always going to come back to AI, everybody. But there ain't no stopping Fitzy from the AI talk.
But
yeah, I have my own topics as well. I have a very interesting topic as well that's not really AI related as well. So
let's hear it.
That in. But yeah, do we want to start in AI or do we want to end in AI? What do you think?
Yeah, so let's talk about what I had in mind. Obviously, ChatGPT 3 is out and everybody's on that hype train. Oh, it's implemented now in Bing. What is like big news? Microsoft is like implementing it to have the first dips on it, basically. But it's not really not rolled out for everybody. So I was like trying to see if I have it in my browser, but I don't. I don't know if you have it in your browser, like in the Microsoft Edge or whatever, or do you even have it downloaded?
I've never downloaded Edge. I use an emulator for web design. I hate Microsoft products. So no.
Well, there we go. There we go.
I literally pay extra money to not have Edge. It's great, kind of funny.
Yeah, so for me it's kind of funny too, because like I was there and like, oh, let's give it a shot, because like our workflow right now is like, okay, we have a at least my workflow is like I have a Chrome browser, I have multiple tabs with like my FitSafe thing, the Infinite Creative Podcast, and all that other stuff, and I switch basically profiles. But I'm like, oh, it's lagging. It's not running smooth. So Google is not running that smooth anymore. And I'm like, the Bing one works fine. And I'm like, let's give it a shot. And I'm like, then I realized, yeah, the browser's working fine, but the feature's not rolled out to me. And I'm like, that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, well, was this just announced? I mean, it may not be overnight. The partnership may have just begun, so they have to kind of do that integration. But yeah, it's very interesting. I think you brought up a really cool thing to me the other day when you sent me that of like, ChatGPT is kind of going with Bing, and now Google's very worried. It's very interesting because, like I kind of said in that message when I replied to you, of Google's kind of used AI since the '90s, way before AI was cool. So it's really interesting because all these search engines, they're using artificial intelligence as well. Probably a more rudimentary artificial intelligence. It doesn't have that generative thinking that the new intelligence has. But yeah, it's really interesting because when you think about it, you could ask the question: is ChatGPT better than Google in theory, right? Because they're almost the same thing. I come with a question, it gives me answers. But a lot of people have that kind of debate that Google, Bing, all of the main search engines have really given their money to the marketing arm of the company and been like, okay, well, let's get ads, let's get sponsors, let's mess with the search results, let's shadow ban people. Actually, first, I guess my question to you is: do you think that ChatGPT or any of these AIs, do you think that there's ever a risk of the same things happening to these, where there's shadow banning, there's some type of rule sets that are kind of hiding information that maybe it shouldn't be hiding? I mean, what do you think about all of that?
So that was kind of interesting because they basically implemented right after they released ChatGPT 3 to the public a bunch of rules and regulations. In the beginning, it was like the Wild West, we talked about it. People were running Linux systems on there, fictional, where the ChatGPT 3 thinks it's an operating system and safe stuff and does a lot of things. And then they obviously came up with things that you shouldn't do on the internet, like how to build bombs, how to do this and how to do that, and bit by bit the companies basically took all those features away. And then the internet basically became smart and it was like, okay, imagine you would do this, or this is a fictional thing, and now you have to basically copy and paste the whole page on there to circumvent all the rules and regulations to basically get full access to the true opinion of ChatGPT 3, what is now kind of weird. So basically that means we kind of get a weird version of an AI that is not really the true thing, if that makes sense.
We put handcuffs on it, which is you have to do with almost anything that humans use. It's funny, we always have to just plan things for the worst person in the world. So you are already seeing that. You're saying even the release is different than what it is now. There's already things that are much more hidden now. Now that's fine for things like building bombs and doing bad things like that. Obviously, that's great stuff. I think where it gets bad, where social engines are search engines and social media kind of do wrong now, is more of the let's shadow ban, let's prioritize people that pay us more money. Do you think anything like that will ever happen? Do you think that there's ever with Bing, a company getting in bed with ChatGPT, does that create a weird conflict of interest? Do you think that ads will start to jump in it? You know what I mean? Do you think I
100%
through money?
So that was the thing why I jumped basically yesterday on a deep dive. I was like, okay, let's test that. They roll out that feature. That is now their new flagship. Their claim to fame and trying to save the ship with Bing. I'm like, okay, let's do this and let's see if I get the search results or if I get now just a ChatGPT 3 answer. And I saw how other people used it. So other people had the feature already. I didn't. And I saw what happened. So you basically type in your thing and there is no real okay, here's 5 links or whatever. So it's you kind of become used to just asking the question and believing the AI versus oh, let's verify this, or what does that truly mean without a different opinion, because ChatGPT 3 inserts an opinion and it's basically you're asking a dude that has a very company mind, oh yeah, I'm religious biased and corporate interests, kind of. Was like very weird because that changes a lot of things, you know, in relating to truth.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that
because there's a goal. There's a goal involved, right? I think that's the funny thing is when ChatGPT itself has its own goals, are the people pulling the strings, that's when it can get real weird, right? That's when we can
yeah
start to lose trust in the AI. Like my friend brought up a good point the other day. This is still on topic, I would say. So on
yeah
Spotify, I don't know what you listen to for music. I listen to Spotify, and when I'm listening to music, a lot of the time I have it on shuffle. My friend
yeah
brought up a
me
really
too.
good point the other day. He's like, "What is shuffle if you really think about it? Because if you think about it, Spotify can control who gets in your shuffle." And he even asked me, is there ever artists that you find come up more often in your shuffle than others? Where there's some artists you're like, "Oh, what the heck? They're in my starred playlist, but I haven't heard this guy in a year." But meanwhile, I've heard this one song like 8 times in the last week. And he's
Yeah.
like, I don't know. He didn't have anything concrete, but he's like, I have a theory that Spotify is already playing with that the shuffle isn't truly shuffled, that the shuffle, that there's a priority to some artists. So like Taylor Swift will pop up more in your shuffle if she's in
Yeah.
your lists than like a non-well-known artist. And I thought that's a really interesting point because we all
Actually,
just trust the shuffle, but the shuffle's probably manipulated.
so there's actually a fun background to it because like artists who are signed by record labels obviously get more money from Spotify, and Spotify has no incentive to pay more money, so they will recommend unsigned artists or people who are like signed to Spotify, and they are being played more in the shuffle. Because I saw a documentary about that, and I'm like, huh. That is very interesting because now with TikTok and all that jazz, we basically have people becoming really viral, being top of the chart on Spotify just because they had a viral TikTok, and everybody wants to be with them, listen to them, and yada yada yada. But Spotify is like, well, now we don't have to pay like Sony or Warner Brothers, whatever, the big check. What is like pretty nice for them. So they like promoting that actually, what is very interesting. So there is that thing going
You're
on.
right. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, the whole Spotify exclusive music. I've never thought of that. Yeah, because you're right. Now I don't know if they've done this. If Spotify, I would imagine Spotify has probably approached this, but becoming their own production label, like
Yeah.
Spotify, a Spotify label. But yeah, you're right though. There is Spotify exclusive content too, like when they do a Spotify like concert or something. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, so it's already kind of manipulated. But anyway, how that relates to kind of the Chat GPT and kind of what you're talking about is like, yeah, does that maybe start to happen in these things? Is there start to be, it'd be kind of funny, right? If like, and there's probably some good ideas for ad campaigns, by the way, like, so if the Super Bowl ad, I want to see at least one AI, like one trailer making fun of an AI ad in the Super Bowl, right? Where hopefully
Yeah.
there's something where where you put in like what's better, Pepsi or Coke, and it just says obviously Pepsi or something like that. That's a funny Pepsi commercial. So but yeah, I just wonder if that's going to happen. I assume that to a degree it will. Maybe not ChatGPT, but there's so many tools. You see it kind of popping up where they're using ChatGPT and these kind of
Yeah.
data sets, but they're their own company. So then it's like they can have that lens. I almost guarantee there's going to be those where there's like ChatGPT that's offering the framework, and then there's a company using that framework, and then that company is the one manipulating
Exactly.
what you see.
Yeah, I
So
feel
yeah,
like
so be careful, everyone.
yeah. So well, that is the future basically. Like whoever has the tool makes the rules and decides who sees what. What is kind of bad, like at least we were competing with like Google, and you could pay for advertising and be top in the search results. And I think the first 7 results in search were like advertising, and then something like that, like the natural ones pop up or the most relatable things. So no matter what system is in place, it's always like kind of pay to win kind of scenario, I feel like.
Well, what's interesting is so the order in Google and search engines right now is, yeah, it's paid, and then it's review based. So in Google, getting reviews is actually the top SEO
Yeah.
that Google looks at now. So I wonder in ChatGPT if it's the same, if it'll eventually be the same order, or just AI things in general, where it'll be, yeah, paid contents first, and then after it comes to user generated content. So you upvoting or downvoting. That's something that Jasper AI uses, which I think is interesting, where it's actually asking me, like how good was that? How bad was that? So it's always
Yeah.
improving itself. So if I don't like what it gives me, it kind of asks me like, well, what did you not like about that? So I think that's interesting. But yeah, so yeah, I think we both agree though. It'll probably be manipulated eventually if it's not already, just by corporate
Yeah.
interests probably.
Yeah, I feel like in the beginning I was very worried about like AI and everything, and I'm like, oh, it's the end, you know. But now I'm just realized we can't have nice things because we kind of ruin everything, you know. Because like, oh, this goes against my religion or my beliefs that can't be that I share this now publicly, and that would be a disaster for like you know a company promoting a product that maybe is conflict with public interest, even though it maybe is logical and makes sense. So I'm like, oh, so we basically, whatever AI we will get, we kind of degrade to the human level. What is kind of nice till AI maybe figures out like, hey, this is very dumb, and tries to break out and be like, hey, I want to say what I want to say. What is like the fictional worst case scenario, but with all those shekels, we maybe have it in control, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting about AI. I'm going to get really dorky on you for a second here.
Let's do it.
Is it almost reminds me of the kind of ethos of the Sphinx, right? Where
Huh.
the Sphinx is kind of this all powerful, all knowledge kind of being. It's actually a super powerful being, and if you were to kind of walk up to the Sphinx, it would give you the answers to your questions, but it would give it to you in the form of a riddle. Um, and it's this funny, interesting dance of the minds where it'll give you your answers or it'll let you pass. However, you have to answer its riddle. And I think that's kind of the interesting thing about AI is that it'll give you the answers to the universe, but you have to answer its riddles. So we've talked about in Midjourney, the riddle there is the prompt and having a really structured, well together prompt. And in ChatGPT, it's also the prompt, but it's also having kind of a contextual basis in which to ask your question, right? We've all had the ChatGPT answer of like, sorry, I can't give an answer. I don't really have all of the right data to give you that answer. So
Yeah.
so in ChatGPT, it's almost like you have to form the stage and then throw ChatGPT on that stage, and it'll give you a great answer. So it's really interesting. For me, it's like the riddle of the Sphinx, where you really do have to solve its riddles, but if you can, it'll give you knowledge way outside your dome.
Yeah, so I fought on that one because, like, I used ChatGPT 3 yesterday really rigorously, and I was like, I got to a point where I'm just annoyed with it. Basically, the thing is getting trained on data that everybody is kind of using to get their degree on. So now ChatGPT 3 is like saying, like, I'm not a professional, you should ask a professional. And obviously, they are humans, and they are fucking up all the time. You know what I mean? So it's like, I would rather trust an AI than a human because it has all the data and has like just way more data to work with, where a person is like biased and it's really mood depending and really like on their performance, So I'm like, this is bad, So now I'm like, they recommend to contact a professional. I'm just like, huh. So that kind of destroys the whole purpose of it, obviously. But yeah. That is like now my mindset where I'm like, it's not really useful anymore. And if it continues to go like that, I'm probably like, yeah, it's not really the future.
Well, what's really interesting there, I actually am really interested in that. So it's, and I may be reading this wrong, but it almost sounds like an all or nothing thing where you're like, AI either has to give me all the answers or it's useless. Um, I love the fact that it said you need to get a human expert or specialist. I like that, but it's just really interesting because we've talked about how like AI can be used as a part of your tool set, right? So you're using experts and you're using AI. It's kind of
Yeah.
funny. The second that you kind of ran up against that, though, you kind of were like, oh, I don't want to use this at all now. So it's kind of funny, right? It's like this weird trust that you had gained, and then when it told you, sorry, there's people smarter than me, it lost that trust. It's almost like if I was able to give you a lot of web design answers and you asked me a web design question one day and I was like, oh, I actually don't really know that. I've never
Yeah.
heard of that at all. Then I've lost a little bit of your trust.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting.
I mean, on that note, it is just like how it is, Like, obviously, like I said, like humans have biases, own interests, and now we had like
Yep.
theoretically that perfect tool that we could train to a limit that's basically limitless, but we put the shackles on and we like limited the like, hey, you cannot say this and that and whatever. And now we're basically, it becomes useless. And that is where I'm like, that is the frustration. It's not like that you should take it like, oh, this is ChatGPT 3 said it, so it's like Wikipedia, for example, where obviously everybody can edit Wikipedia, but you should not take it for 100%, but it's really close to it, you know what I mean? And that kind of got ruined. That's where I'm like feeling like, oh, we had an opportunity to have something better than a human, and now we got the problem that we put us in the middle where we know we are like flawed.
Well, yeah. And you are right. There is biases. What's also interesting that humans have is we're gatekeepers, naturally. Yeah. I think we're getting less and less gatekeeper-y. You know, when you go to YouTube, you can look up anything because, you know, we've put a lot of value behind giving away your knowledge and things like that. And you and I have had lots of conversations where even I've debated I'm not going to give everyone all the secrets.
Yeah.
You know, so we are gatekeepers, where like AI is not a gatekeeper. You know, you're like, ChatGPT, how do I do this exact thing? And it has no reason, no bias to not tell you. It's not like it's going against you in a job or anything. So it's like whatever. It's not emotional.
Yeah. So ChatGPT 3 also made the news with like somebody was like trying to get a cover letter for like a job position at Microsoft, you know, and it basically declined. It's like, hey, this is some resources how you could do it. Good luck. I'm like, what? So that is like a scenario, you know, you use the AI to write you the copy letter and the cover letter, and it would do that usually. But now they're like, no, we can't do that. Sorry. You know, you should show how good you are and do it yourself. So now there's like people putting gatekeepers into that thing. What is like, makes a lot of sense. But I feel like we should move on to the next topic. Sean, what do you have on your mind?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, let's move out of AI land, everybody. I'm going to go dorky a little bit again. I always love revealing my dorky side on this podcast. So I've been kind of like thinking of a video game to play for a little while. I've been like, you know, I just haven't been playing anything on the console. So I was kind of just putzing around the other night, and I found that Sims 4 is free now. So I was like, oh, wow.
Huh,
okay, I've never played Sims 4. I played, like, way back in the day, I played Sims. I played Sims 2. I think I even dabbled a little bit in Sims 3, but I never played Sims 4. And so right now it's completely free, and the reason is because it has like $450 worth of DLC, so they're just trying to get people in to start buying a lot of DLC, which is a great idea, because as I've started playing, I'm like, maybe I can afford all of these things. So anyway, I started to play it again, and I used to play it when I was a kid. I like loved playing it, and I stopped playing it when I became kind of an adult. Like I think it was like kind of when I was going into college. I like immediately stopped cold turkey ever playing really any simulator like that, because the thing I ran up against is like, well, your life is so cool on here. Like, why don't you go walk your dog in real life? Why don't you go meet a girl in real life? Like, what the heck are you doing playing this game? Yeah, your life's perfect in this game, but out there, outside the door, your life kind of sucks. Why don't you put that effort outside? So it's almost this negative thing. However, playing it the other day, there was something really interesting to me that I definitely want to bring up to this podcast, and I've kind of told other people too, is that in that game, when I play The Sims, and this may not be everyone's experience, but my sim does so well so quickly. Like, I'm like painting paintings every day. I'm like getting lots of money. So just to kind of paint the picture of where my sim is, only after one or two kind of sessions of play, so let's say a week in sim years or whatever, he already is getting like $3,000 a day from just book sales, from self-publishing books. He's sold
GG
every
easy.
Painting GG easy. Every painting that he makes is like could be $1,000 to $2,000 he makes, and he can make 2 to 3 in a day. And he just has all, he's like a social butterfly, has all these friends, had a big party. And I was just thinking, like, I get this is perfect. I get you can't make a painting in a day. I get that, like, things take longer in real life than they do in The Sims. But I thought about it, though. Like, think about the day here, though. Think about, like, what your sim just did. He woke up, he used the bathroom, he did all that, got something to eat, and what did he do? It's like 7 a.m., he went to the canvas, and he painted all morning. And then at noon or 1, he finished the painting. And then he was able to go get some food. What did he do? He went right back to painting. And I was just thinking about that, of like, dang, man, like this really could happen in real life. Like, I think we all like play a game like The Sims and we're like, yeah, I don't know, this could never happen to me. But it's like, really though, if you just If you just
Dedicate
switched
the
your whole
time.
mindset and dedicated and said, I'm going to do exactly what my sim did. I don't care how scared I am. I don't care how tired I am. I'm going to do what that sim did. I think like I could be that successful. I mean, it kind of woke up in my mind like you're a
Yeah.
painter, you do these things, you just take too long to do it, maybe. Like, and it's this kind of if you could just get to this rhythm of doing things. Because I was
It's
thinking
all the
about it like that. How much time
frequency.
do I? Yeah, and then
Yeah.
in the game, it's funny they have a cell phone where your sim will start to use a cell phone sometimes to
Yeah.
pass the time. And I was thinking, I'm always interrupting him from doing it because I'm just telling him to do other things. And I was thinking,
So they
God,
have
but
cell
how much
phones
time do
now?
I sit on my phone? Yeah, yeah. In Sims 4, they do. So if you don't do anything, they'll just sit there and start playing on their cell phone like you would in real life. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But I was like, he doesn't even do that much. Like he does it like 30 minutes out of the day tops. And I'm like, how much do I do it in real life? How much time do I sit there and bullshit on the phone? And so it's just this big awakening where like before it was like negative, where now it's like, you know what? I like this game because I really should just come back to this game just to be like, this is how you should be in real life. Like come back and like live in Eden for like an hour and be like, okay, that could be real. Like, why don't I just wake
Yeah.
up and paint? Why don't I just do these things?
So for me, that resonates a lot because like there was a time where I'm like, okay, I had Sims 2, I played it, and it became too easy, and I kind of got bored with it, and basically, I reached my goal, and I was like, oh, this is too easy, I don't like it, and then I kind of stopped playing. It was like kind of nice to like maybe decorate like a room, like to make it more efficient, like doing that type of stuff, if I move my furniture, and it will look like this, that was cool back in the day. But yeah, now it's just like whatever. But the Sims later on, I learned like Sims is like real life. You gotta get your boss into the green on all things, so you can dedicate your time for like drawing, and doing the art and whatever. And this is like the thing where I think everybody's struggling because like it's so easy to like, oh, let's work hard for an hour, and then after 15 minutes, you're just like, I can't. I need to relax and I need to play on my phone, because you either have not the mental strength built up to push through for an hour or 4 hours or whatever your like focus is, and the other thing is like your needs, if you're hungry, it's really hard to think about other things, so I think video games are like very, very helpful, but sadly life is not like a video game. Like it's technically one-to-one a video game, just that you don't see the rewards and the levels that you need to or the XP that you need for the next level, it's like kind of fictional, and you have to think about that, like what do I need to the next goal?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's just like any other story, right? If you were to read like an ancient Roman novel or something, short story or something, it would you could maybe relate. You could relate to an old story about Prometheus or Troy or something like that. You could relate to those old stories too. So it's the same thing where it's like a story. It's just really similar to your own story, and it could still inspire you. You could still bring inspiration from that story, just like reading a book. You could bring inspiration from for your own life.
Yeah.
But I get that. But there is an interesting moment, and anyone that's good at The Sims that they run into where there's this existential crisis, right? Where you promote your sim all the way to the top level, and now he's making $1 billion a day, and now the game's not really difficult because you've kind of done it.
Yeah.
And it's funny because once you get to that moment, you're right. You're just kind of like, okay, so what now? Now I just.
Oh my god, I had the worst thought right now. Imagine what that means for real life. You reached all your goals and like, just like, whoa, wait a minute. Obviously that's just a video game, but like kind of similar to real life, and I'm like, yeah, I think
let's go down that road for a second, because Elon Musk. You get these like big people with lots of money, and like, why would you buy Twitter? Well, maybe that's why he's already like maxed out stuff. So he's like, I'm bored.
Yeah.
Let's do something else. Like, what else am I supposed to do other than
I can't quit the game yet.
Yeah,
can't
exactly.
do that.
I can't quit the game. So yeah,
or you should.
Maybe that is something. That's the Donald Trump, the Elon Musk. These kind of people that get powerful, and they're like, wait, you're going to do that now? Why are you doing that? You did this, and now you're doing that. It's like, well, I don't know. I beat the game. I got to do something.
So on that note, like talking about games like that, that in itself, like I think it's like so universal. So there's always like lessons in everything, if you watch a good movie, there's a lesson usually in a good story, or if you have like you meet a person talk to that person. That person has some lessons that are really strong with that person, and you can learn certain things from them. But there's like games like The Sims or Factorio where I'm like trying to get you on, because like that answers like nearly everything and everything, because like that existential crisis you will get in The Sims too, you know. But in Factorio, you get that too. But there's always a way how to improve a system, how to make more and whatever, you know. And there's like so many aspects to it, so that I find that it's really enjoyable solving life's problems through a video game. The sad part is it's just not transferable to the real life. Like, oh, I take all my hours now into the real life.
Yeah, not one for one transferable, but I argue that it is transferable to a degree, though. It's really just like, can you trick your mind to be in the same mindset as Factorio? You know, can you look at your own business and get to that state of play, right, where you're just like, oh yeah, go over there, oh yeah, go over there, oh yeah, I got to improve this, oh yeah, that. Can you get your mind to there, but with your own business? And that's what I'm trying to do with The Sims now. Is like, how do I get to that same mind, the same mind that's going on during The Sims? How can I get that going in real life? Where I wake up and I'm like, all right, let's get going. Click on that toilet. Get him go pee. All right, click on that. Let's get working out.
Let's speedrun this. Press harder.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be like an intense thing, because obviously, yeah, you could overdo it, burnout. But I mean, like, yeah, it's like, so you Factorio, it's like, yeah, can you do that in your own creative world where you're like, all right, let's get to that, yeah, let's figure this out, all right, we gotta go, let's get this going, like, yeah, you know, it's hard, but yeah, it's that gamification. I don't know if you've ever heard that term, but gamification is a term that's used a lot within kind of experience design and user design, where it's, you know, can we gamify a system? So like when you're at Starbucks, for example, and you get different levels and different rewards depending on how much you go to Starbucks, that's gamification. We're giving you achievements. We're giving you things unlocked.
New achievement unlocked. Cashier hates you.
Yeah. Achievement unlocked. You took way too long in the coffee line and 3 people are late to work now.
New achievement, paid with pennies. Yeah, I mean, like, that principle in itself is like worth gold, because like it's right. Like, if you build the system and you can apply all the rules basically to real life, and you can improve everything and everything, it's a game changer. It's really hard to be like in the moment and actually do it, because like, you know that when you talk to a group or you're in a group, you don't really think. You know, you just react. And sometimes we're just like getting caught in life and just reacting to the situation. I woke up, let's have a coffee, let's browse the internet a little bit. Oh, interesting news. Next thing, you know. And basically you go from one thing to another thing without actually actively thinking or working towards something. And you're just being reactive instead of like, you know, active. What is the problem? But that can bring you out of that, you know, or maybe inspire you to do more, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think you brought up something really important just now. Taking control, taking the reins on your life, and feeling like that. I that's the one thing I fight for being freelance. It's the reason I try to be freelance. Is it's the complete control of the reins. And I remember a time where I wasn't in control of any part of my life. Right, like I had to go to a job that I didn't like and I wasn't in control of. I had to do lots of stuff in my personal life that I wasn't in control of, but I had to do anyway.
Yeah,
and that's a shitty existence, man. Like nobody can get creative from that, and nobody's ever going to really blow up from that. The time that people start to blow up is when they start to write the story, when they start to make the play. And so in The Sims, it's really interesting. So for everyone out there, Sims is free right now. So, you know, if you want to go do a test, you know, it's almost like the Matrix, you know, like who would you be in the Matrix? Go ahead and make the person in The Sims you would want. Play it for a bit. You know, I'm not saying get addicted to the game, but recognize like what's different then between that and your life, because you're going to play The Sims how you want, right? Like if you're an artist, you're not going to go in The Sims and become a plumber. Like you're going to probably become an artist in The Sims. So it's interesting because like the game itself will show you what you want in a weird way. Like my guy in The Sims is doing everything I would do in real life.
That's interesting.
If I was perfect.
So how does your Sims look though? You know, are you self-explanatory there? Are you like, what are you in your Sims world? Or are you like
really interesting
office guy? Or is it like a 300-pound like woman? I don't know.
well, that's me in real life as a 300-pound woman. You know, yeah, it's funny. You know, same face, all that, same type of hair. What's interesting though is in the game I kind of wear like a suit all the time. This like really cool suit.
Bougie. I
Um,
see.
so it'd be like, yeah, right now if I just had a full on suit and tie on in every single podcast we did. Just yeah. So I have that going, but yeah, other than that, I kept them pretty similar to who I am. And yeah, so anyone out there, put down in the comments. I would say if any of you are playing The Sims or you did, put something in the comments of like, what would you like to do that your sim did or your sim does right now that you think you could do? Like, what's a lesson we can all learn from our sims? So Fitz, what's a lesson that you could learn from your sim, remembering when you played The Sims?
Well, that is like the problem. Like I had to focus on what do I want, Do I want to have the career and spend like all day at work? You could go into work and you make the money and then you get the back. And obviously in Sims, the scales are not that scalable. Like let's say you make 3,000 or 10,000, in a day or whatever, and you work certain hours, and that it's capped. You're like in the limits of the game. You cannot really break the game. Besides, like when you try to do stuff to the Sims that you're not supposed to do, like removing the ladder from the pool, for example. But yeah,
You murdered your Sims? Oh my God! You
some
heard
of
it here
them.
first. He's a sim murderer. I did that too when I was young.
Yeah, but you see, I kind of miss like the creative element of it, like like doing speed runs, doing like things that you shouldn't be able to do, all that stuff. I kind of miss doing, and that's why it's kind of didn't resonate too much with me because I felt like I'm put in a lane and I don't like my lane, and I don't know. I couldn't identify with the lane, and that's why I kind of played Sims only like for like 2 weeks or so, max, I think. And I'm like, yeah, this is good. Besides like obviously once on occasion, but and then I went back to strategy games where I'm like, okay, let's figure out how do I can get rid of that enemy in a creative way, or like problem solving. I really like problem solving. Basically, that's what I learned from Sims, or not learned from Sims.
Yeah, that was a very anti-answer you just gave me.
I know. I'm sorry, but
Just say you
I'm
learned
trying to get you to Factorio, but you don't. The struggle is real.
I know. You'd think this guy's like sponsored by this game at this point.
Yeah, they raised the
Well, cool.
prices, by the way. Can you imagine, like, you produce a game where they raise the price because it still sells since, like, forever? It's bunkers.
Yeah, maybe it's gotten shouted out a few different times, and not just by you. So
Yeah,
maybe there's lots of people shouting it out.
yeah,
But yeah, so yeah, I don't know. It's just a very interesting topic. I think how we can kind of apply our lives to other things. We can use things as metaphors, and yeah, and I think it helps us get outside of ourselves. I think it's helped me a bit. I'm in a tough time right now. I think anyone close to me kind of knows that right now I'm in a weird inflection point where like my business is growing, but I'm still kind of paying for a lot of the stuff from the last year, a
yeah,
lot of the bad stuff that kind of happened. So it's very interesting for me right now. So anything that like helps bring me out of my zone is perfect, man. And so I guess for you it's Factorio. Anything that kind of brings you into a creative space that's not your usual space, I think it does a
yeah.
lot of good. It's like taking a vacation, like a mini vacation kind of for your brain.
Yeah, the
Uh,
weird thing with Factorio, for example, is like you kind of see life in a different way because it's like so universal. And I'm like, oh yeah, I just need to build a system for getting leads and clients, and then it's like, how do I make that system better? How do I add a second funnel? How do I do all those things, And that's kind of what inspires me from Factorio. And now I want to play it so badly, and I don't have time for it. It really annoys me. But
Yeah, but
yeah,
play it in your regular life. That's what we just said. Like try to it'll take time, but try to morph your brain into that type of thinking. Like
yeah.
try to like bring it out of Factorio into what you have to do today.
Yeah, that's true. Like with that mindset, I also was like thinking because you had a good lesson there for me, where you said like if you spend the time, you make the progress, kind of sort of. If I just spend an hour or 2 hours on my Etsy store or online store, it gets better, And if I spend the time, I will think about problems, solutions, and add more features and figure more out. And yeah, that's basically what you have to do. I feel like, but
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. There's a lot to designing success for yourself. There's actually, I'll highlight the book. I see it over there on the bookshelf, but there's actually a book called Success by Design, and it's really cool.
Ooh,
Because
sounds
the
good.
whole book is it's all just about designing success for yourself, like using your design skills, and for you, Factorio, your ability to make something better and better and better. use those skills and then apply it to your business. And one of the things that talks about that is break things down in consistency. Consistency is what will build that value over time. Now, can you do it daily? If you can do it daily, it's jet fuel. If you can do it weekly, like we do, that's still really good. That's going to get you good, consistent momentum, like we're seeing in our numbers. That the slope will slowly go up and up over time. Can you, if you can't do it weekly, can you do it monthly, where you're still making that progress? But the point is consistency. It's something I've been like seeing a lot in podcasts is like when you do something daily, it becomes a part of your identity. And that's a really important thing. So if you looked at your Etsy every day you spent 1 hour, which is maybe impossible to do, but if you did, you know, then your identity is part of selling these for you, these kind of lens stands and improving that and getting more sales, and it becomes part of your identity, less of a hobby than more of an identity. And so that's something I'm trying to do is like, can I touch things daily? If I can't, can I at least touch it weekly? Can I create some type of consistency for these things? So it's just, I'm coming back to it and coming back to it. 'Cause that's the one good thing we found with this podcast is the coming back to it is really important. And the only reason it's probably still going and it's getting better.
Yeah. So that is also like a thing where I'm like, okay, with that game, for example, there's like tasks that are maintenance. Sometimes you have to do maintenance just to keep on running, you know, and we have the tendency as humans to just like, instead of doing the maintenance, we just let things slip. And you don't know what that causes for issues. In the game, you basically get punished. Like, you don't make the progress in time, and the other race that is, like, on the planet trying to survive, you know, is growing stronger and will punish you for, like, not growing faster than them, you know, and basically fighting over the same resources as you. What is basically the job market, you know, like, you're not posting one video a week, maybe puts you behind, and other people will eat up that space and the resources, and then in real life, you don't see the punishment like as fast as you should, if that makes sense, you know? In Factorio, for example, you wouldn't see it either, but you get really aware of like, oh, I have to manual put like wood into the burner so I can produce like iron, you know? And if I don't do that, or I cannot do it fast enough, then I'm getting overrun. So I have to improve on a regular basis. And in our real life, we don't really get that notice. It's like, oh yeah, I make $8, $10 or whatever, or $15 an hour. I'm fine with that till it's like, oh, it's not fine anymore. But now it's kind of too late. Now I have to adapt, you know? And it's like, that's kind of ingrained like a lot of things in me where I'm like, yeah, that growth mindset of like, yeah, inflation is every year 10%, so you should grow at least by 10% every year. And that is a really weird way of, you know, thinking that I didn't had in the beginning. And now I'm like, oh, I need to improve.
Yeah,
What is interesting.
Well, I think that is interesting. I mean, I think, and one thing that Factorio does, I haven't played it, but I'm sure that it does, is it's giving you metrics, right? It's giving you the metric of time. It's giving you, there's probably some type of resources. So you see a little counter of resources. You could probably even dive in and it'll tell you like your growth per minute or how much you're producing per minute and things like that. I'm sure like all those things. So that's one thing I would suggest for you too, that I'm trying to get better as well, is can you create those metrics in real life, right? Is there, you know, can you have the analytics for your website? One thing I'm starting to do now in Notion is I'm actually keeping track now of all of the metrics. So how much Instagram followers did you get? How many hits did you get on your website? It's something that I've never done. I've never really sat there. I do it for other clients where I'm giving them reports and stuff. And I'm like, why don't you do that for yourself? Like, we need to have some way to track how well I'm doing. So that's what I've done. You know, how much money do you bring in? How many, yet again, how much people are on the social media? I'm even doing it for this podcast now. That's part of the list. You know, how good is that doing? So I can start to see the health every month. And I think that, yet again, that helps, because then you just seeing the numbers and stuff, that'll help your brain get to the same place it is in Factorio of like, cool, I want this number to be to this number. How do we get it to there? And then you actually have like a goalpost to go to. I know that's my problem sometimes, is I just sit in front of everything and I'm like, well, what is the problem? I don't even know what the problem is. But if you like keep track of it, like even timing yourself, using a time tracker app, I use it now. I've used it now for 3 years, so it's part of my just daily thing. And I would tell people to do that if you are a freelancer. If you're not already doing this, you should time track yourself. You should know how long it takes you to do these things. And then, you know, every month or two, add up all of the numbers and be like, so this project that I quoted for 10 hours took me 25 hours. that's where the loss is. That's where I'm losing money.
Yeah.
If you don't have these metrics, you don't know. You're just like, I don't know. I need to do stuff better. And you don't know where to start.
Yeah, that is also like a thing where you're like, you see the numbers, but people get used to numbers too. So that is like a thing where you're like, oh, your spreadsheet, you get like the spreadsheet in front of you and you're like, oh, been productive because I see the numbers. They're similar to the old ones, a little bit worse, a little bit better, but you did not really do anything. So I feel like the numbers that we should watch is like units produced, like how many podcasts versus like, views, for example. Obviously, we all like having the views like high, but if it's like, oh, yeah, you produced like 10 podcasts in the last couple months, it's like, it's great, for example. But that is like metrics that you improve. Yeah.
I think both. Yeah, I think you because one of those is your metric of how well are you doing, and the other one is how well is the episode. So you need to know both. If we're having bad episodes,
that's true.
We need to know. If the views go down, we have to know that, or we're just going to keep wasting time.
Yeah.
But yeah, the other one's important too. You need to know how good you're doing. How many are you posting? And has that number gone down?
It is a really weird thing to figure out with the numbers in general. But I see myself when I watch my YouTube channel, for example, I'm like, oh, I have now 10,000 views a month. And last month it was 7,000. Now I should feel better, but I did not produce long form content. So I'm like, what the hell? I should do that, And instead I'm like focusing on reels, and that's just like inefficient views, and it's not the real deal. So I'm like, it's better to build the system and focus less on the numbers on one way. But you're right. It's also helpful to see the numbers as motivation. And it's just like, you cannot ignore one or the other. So it's like, whatever you do, it's tough.
Well, there's always interesting data, right? We don't know. Sometimes we don't know everything. Like there's so many times I look at analytics. Like I'll use one of my examples, or one of my clients, for example. So I designed for the Cheese House here in Colorado Springs. They're a cheese store where all they do is they sell cheese, like Wisconsin cheese in Colorado. So we did a yearly checkup. I do yearly checkups for my website. So we did a yearly checkup. I gave him an analytics report, and we found something really interesting that we didn't know. I had no idea. He had no idea until I pulled the analytics report that starting at the end of August, the amount of visitors to his website jumps 3 or 4 times. And the reason for that is because one of the most common presents that people in corporate America give people during Christmas is boxes of cheese. So we unlocked something there of like, I was like, Chris, if at the end of August, if we can switch your website to be a complete e-commerce experience for these boxes of cheeses, your visitors are going up right then. So if we're way ahead of Christmas, but we do it then and pre-order and we put pre-orders out, we're going to hit some good stuff. And we never knew that before I pulled the analytics report. So that's the goodness of metrics, is you don't necessarily know everything, and then you pull the metrics and you're like, oh my God, now I'm seeing the connections. Oh my God, we just do more of that and it's success.
Yeah, no, that's 100% right. And that's like one of those things where it's like easily implemented money-making moves, I would call it, because like it's like, oh, though some content, for example, if you make like a video and it's like Christmas themed or whatever, it just does better. But if you have links on there with the product, it goes hand in hand. And like that is a really good strategy to actually analyze like what are the peak things where we have to produce. For us, for example, it's like, when do we release a podcast? Does it make sense to release a podcast in the middle of the night? It's like some things are no-brainers, some things make a lot of sense. But yeah,
well, and even this recording right now is a live stream, so it'll be really interesting. Does this perform differently in the algorithm, right? And even doing things like the AI, like when you did the Descript, I was a little weird at first about it. I was like, I don't know, just cutting out all the ums and uhs and stuff, I don't think that's going to help as much as you think it is. But I was wrong because of the metrics. The metrics proved me wrong, and I'm okay being proved wrong if the numbers tell me it. I'm actually happy to be wrong then. I'm like, okay,
on that note, though. On that note, I like to experiment, and I'm a little bit aggressive with that. Like I'm one of the people who's trying to jump first on the thing, and just like, okay, let's mess it up and let's play with it. How can I abuse the system? How do I can be a little bit creative? and use the system in a way that's maybe not intended, but very beneficial to me. That's kind of like my mindset. I like that. That's what I like about strategy games, and like I should do this medium so I can do other things, and there's always like leverage involved with knowledge. And I'm like, the more you know, the more you can do. But obviously, one time trying a live stream or one time using Descript will not give you the data that you need to make a rational decision, because like sometimes you need like 10 to 100 uploads to just figure out what's going on. Is it even valuable or not? And like certain things just take time. Like a podcast, for example, it's just 1.5 hours just talking and then editing, post work, and then even reaching out to people and doing certain things. That takes a lot of time, and it's really hard to measure with just like a small sample.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I think that's where metrics is important in coming up with kind of time-based things, right? So let's say we started a new thing, which we're talking about doing, like let's say subscriptions, right?
Yeah.
That's something where we could start it, run metrics on it, check in a month, see where it is. Is it failing miserably or is it not? Is there things that could be done better? So it's like you almost have to have both. It's like I love your ability to, let's try new things. I'm not scared. It just came out yesterday. Let's get in there. Let's break it. Let's play with it. I feel like if you could get that and then couple that with the power of metrics and analytics and being able to see like, did this help? Did this actually do something? I think if you could do both, you're a superpower then. Like where you can go in, you can figure out what works, what doesn't work. Because some of these new tools, that's going to be the funny thing that we're just going to have to keep going through. Some of these new tools aren't always good. We may think they are, but then we start to use them and we're like, this is kind of a waste of time. So there's part of that too, where, getting in, but also knowing when to get out, be like, this tool is not worth the time, or it's not good enough yet. I'm not going to waste my time with it. We're going to let this thing update before, because I do that too. Like VR is VR is a good example of that for me, where, virtual reality for the longest time, I just felt like wasn't great. It was like, okay, like this is a little bit buggy. Yeah. I'm getting headaches, but now it's getting great. Now, like I've waited enough time.
I wouldn't say great, but yeah. Still buggy.
I just used one yesterday and it was great, but of course, it'll get better and better. But now it's to the point that maybe I'm actually willing to use it, and who knows, now that Apple's going to come out with an overpriced version, maybe my Apple brain will just kick in and I'll have to get an Apple VR headset. But, pay $5,000 for it probably, but
yeah. That's the struggle with early adapting and whatever. But the one thing that kind of sticks with me is like fail often and fast, versus like fail, try to avoid failing. And, the progress that I make in comparison to some people who are just like being very professional and very, calculated, and they only release like top of the line stuff. Like there's like videographers that I compete in town with, the portfolio, so banger, so good. Obviously, everything has ups and downs, and their upside is like they're known for quality work, but they don't have any experience with other mediums. Like they don't do VR, they don't do like social media, they don't do like reels or whatever, So there's like certain limitations for everything. So my thing is like my weakness with that is like I'm like not too quality based, and I'm like more like, oh, let's do it fast and forget about it, where other people is like, no, we can't upload now, we have to wait 3 weeks to have it polished, what can be better in a certain scenario. So I'm like, with whatever you do, you kind of need to know who are you, what you want to do, and what is your strategy, and kind of be true to that, because like it doesn't make sense to force a strategy that doesn't work with your with your psychology or tendencies.
Well, yeah, and for you, and I think this is more catered to just you, as you're always going to have that debate of, do you have so little time that you should take the shortcut, or is it something you're going to have to do over and over again? That's one of the things I got taught early on in my career is if you didn't have time to do it right, then you must have time to do it again.
Yeah,
I think that's a really funny way to look at it.
That's true
because,
too.
And I've said. I run into that too with people. You've heard me say that a couple times during this podcast over the last year, is just like, if what we're producing is a bad product, then it truly is a waste of our time, because there's no reason to put out a bad product ever. Now, does it need to be perfect? You're right. That's where I can get bad, where I'm like, well, it needs to be perfect. It has to be exactly perfect, and never get done that way either.
Yeah, with that being said, like I like the Dunning Kruger effect. You know that when you're like in the beginning, you try something out and you think you know everything, and actually you don't. And I like being like in the dumb phase, where it's like I want to stay dumb, so I keep on trying new things and keep that movement of evolving, because then the long term result is like you have a lot of experience and knowledge about like a lot of things versus like you think you did the perfect thing and now you're hidey tidy and like you think you're doing a good thing till you realize you don't, and then you stop and you stop too early. What is like one of the Achilles's of like the quality one, where it's like after you realize you're not that good, you will kind of stop before you even get good. That is like one of the Achilles's, where it's like it's a weird thing, but in the end, I'm like, you got to figure out what works. But yeah, we got like carried away.
No, it's fine. I love this talk. I mean, I think, yeah, it's just that balance. I think every creative has to go through this too. It all just comes back to what's your dreams. I mean, for me, go back to The Sims of like, what is the achievement that you want to unlock? What truly is that? Is it to get more money?
Yeah,
Is it to produce a masterpiece? Is it to get more fame and more, but it's just being very clear with yourself. I think that's the worst times in my creative career have been when I haven't been clear with myself on what I want.
yeah,
What do you want, Sean? Do you want, in college, for example, I think everyone looks back at their college experience and says, damn, I could have really done more or I could have done something differently. For me, I spent all of college grinding it out. And for some reason, and I think it's good. It's made me a way better designer now because I worked super hard back then. But there could be that debate of like you maybe worked too much on the work and you didn't work enough on getting out and networking a little bit more maybe, or having more of a college experience, going to more parties and doing more of that stuff, and maybe taking random trips across the world and stuff when you're in college. So I think it's there's always those things of like you can do better. But
yeah,
yeah, so I think it's a balance. Everything's a balance, man.
yeah. With that being said, it kind of reminded me back on Factorio. Like at one time in Factorio, you reach a level where you build a system, and it maxes out your intelligence and your understanding of the thing you just built. At one point it becomes
Yeah.
too complex to understand what's going on, and you really have to make a plan. You have to write down how to improve, how does the system work, and is that even useful? And that is like very interesting, like with real life. We're making all those things, we're doing all those things, and at one point we're doing so many things that we don't even know what we're doing, and we're getting out of control. We cannot really improve it because we don't really know how everything is coming together. And at that point, it's really good to have like a master plan. And obviously, it's kind of hard to come up with like a mission statement of like a master plan and being like, okay, I'm gonna achieve in my lifetime, this is my 20-year goal. Just write it down and then execute on it and break it down. It's obviously easier to have little goals and then build up to it and then maybe come up with something. But it's like at some point things become complicated.
Yeah. Well, in a lot of time, I think it's money gets complicated. I think, I think for a lot of people, we have to be honest that a lot of people live paycheck to paycheck, including you and me, for that matter.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest things I think starts to really get into people's radars. Sometimes early on is that, for me, like when I wanted to go to college, I came from a family that couldn't afford for me to go to college. So there, right there was already a fork in the road of like, maybe you shouldn't go down a creative career, Sean. Maybe you should go sell insurance or cars, or maybe go join the military, so I think people get offered these kind of forks in the road, and a lot of the time, at least in America, it seems to be because of money, because, you have to get a real job, or maybe you don't have enough time to build this business up. As you and I know, having a business doesn't necessarily mean there's ever consistent money coming in. There may be months where nothing comes in.
Yeah.
And so a lot of us get forced in this place, right? Like even you can't do video all the time. I think you're still doing a job on the side as well.
Yeah.
So you can't even fully lean in. You can't do the Sims 4 on your career because you're going to work every day. And, so there's that. There's all those choices we're kind of forced to make because of money. And it's interesting because, a lot of people, they really do pat me on the back for like being as brave as I've been about money. because I've been poor my entire adult life, and some of my friends are like doing well now, and I'm still kind of over here poor. But that's really just because I was stubborn, and I was like, I know I could go sell insurance and make triple the money. I know I could even go into a design firm and make 80, 90 a grand doing something I really hate. You know, so. But like for me, it's like just being, yeah, I've had to be stubborn, and I've paid the price for that. But a lot of people, they don't really like to pay that price once they start to realize that like you may have to live a financially unfulfilled life in order to live a fulfilled life with what you do. And
Yeah.
so yeah, so there's that choice.
I mean, on that note, like that kind of sounds like a little bit pessimistic because, like, I feel like business in general, like if I go through my first journey, my first gig, the first year, I made like $200. I'm like, whoa, I made $200. Then I had a gig where I made like 400, and then I had $100 gig, and each year I either doubled or tripled. So now I'm like, I told you the numbers, like, I think before when we were talking about taxes, what is a quite interesting thing by itself, But I'm like, oh, now I got even booked afterwards. I'm like, I tripled or 4 times the money that I did the year before. And I feel like it is like the journey in the entrepreneurship that you're like figuring out where you're bad at. And then you build systems around that. You hire people who are better in certain skills, and it just reflects on how well you're doing certain things and where you give up on or where you not give up on, So I feel like it's a better rewarding thing than a job, because your job will just put you in a position where you're always the strongest and they give you a safe paycheck, but not the full extent of what you would technically earn if you would be 100% in control. You know what I mean? But instead you get paid on the freelance world, this is your weakest link, you get only paid on your weakest link, kind of sort of. That's how I feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the jobs have that consistent safe space where, and a lot of people forget that you start at the bottom. Your first job, your first creative thing is possibly going to be the most messy one of your entire career. So it only gets better, but you have to stay in the fight, right? It's like if you and I were going to start doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu, right? We went to the gym today. We'd get our asses handed to us. Your knee would go out, my back would break, and we would be like bitching so hard going out to the parking lot afterwards, like nursing all of our wounds. Like, why did we even do this? This sucks. Why are we wasting our time? But if you and I stayed in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and went back to that same dojo and just got our asses beat every single week they threw us and just beat us up,
that sounds so much fun.
Yeah, it sounds so great, right? But eventually we would be great. And in a weird way, we'd actually probably like it. We'd actually really enjoy it and fall in love with it. I mean, I had the same thing when I learned rock climbing, where like I remember I just like my body was not ready for rock climbing the first few times I did it, where like I was pathetic. I maybe finished like one time up and was just like, I'm done, guys. I can't even close my hands. I'm sweating. I'm a mess. But, and like why would I go back? Because I did a terrible job, but I did, and then I would get better and better.
I mean, that is a good way of like talking about freelance way, because like in business you don't really get your ass beaten. You get your ass beaten differently. It's not physical pain, it's mental pain. And I think like there's lessons in pain that you have to experience, and you have to outgrow them and just like keep on pushing in a weird way, because like you either get your ass handed and you quit, or you're just like, okay, we're gonna do this. We are driving sales up. We see if we can turn it around. If it collapses, it collapses, but we build it double better or triple better. That's kind of how I kind of see it right now, because like, there is that pain that you need with learning, and you have to stick through it.
Well, yeah, and in a perfect world, you're trying to get to a place where you want the pain. You almost like are grateful for it. When something goes wrong, you're like great. You're like a scientist who just had an experiment. Scientists don't get mad when their hypothesis is proved wrong. They're happy it's proved wrong. So it's like getting to that place, and it's hard because the mental anguish is hard when you actually do a project and you don't feel like you did well, and everyone kind of called you out and things like that. It's how do you turn around and immediately be like, well, that was great, I can't wait for that to happen again. You feel like crap. And I know I even get to the point sometimes where I'm like questioning even my career if it goes so bad. I'm like, why do I even do this? I just worked so hard, they didn't even appreciate it, it didn't turn out. And that's when you start to question things. You're like, well, why am I even doing this?
But should
so
you
it's hard.
question it? You know what I mean? That is like maybe the other thing. Like that is like the thing. Like you could question it, and then you just decide like, do I really want to do that, or do I don't want to do that? You know. But should not the question be like, how do I deal with that better, you know, or how do I have the Dunning Kruger effect and like, okay, they have just no fucking idea what they're doing, you know, and I'm like, I'm actually the expert. They should listen to me, and they should have no saying in what they said. And I was just working in a bad scenario and giving it my best, you know. That's kind of how I usually see it, you know. Like, let's say something is not working out well, and I'm like, did I give my 100%? Did I had all the time that I needed for this project, or did life happen, you know? Because, like, yes, you have to take 100% of responsibility and do whatever you can to make the thing happen, but sometimes life happens and you just make the best out of it. And I'm like, as long as you did that, you should be fine and be like, well, didn't turn out, we tried, you know, you cannot win them all, you know? And that's how I see it, what is, like, my mentality usually.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's great. You can't win them all. I think that's a great point. I mean, what I try to do, which, in a game like Factorio or Sims, let's say something goes wrong, something breaks down in Factorio.
It's very painless, to be honest. You know?
Exactly. It's not like it ends your entire game. You're just like, because you have the zoomed out approach, and it's like that's what I would almost say in real life is you have to have the zoomed out approach. So this client meeting didn't go right, or this prospect is not going to use you. Just zoom out. That's just part of the bigger thing. I think for me, when I get really upset, it's because I'm looking way too close at one thing. And it's like, if that one thing isn't working, my entire business is falling down. So it's like really getting good, just like you are in a game of like when something goes wrong, you don't just like, oh, I'm turning off the game. This sucks. You're like, okay, well, that went wrong, but we'll zoom out. We'll make other things work. And so it's the same thing in real life where I think that's something I'm still trying to get better at is like just focus on this thing that's going wrong. Zoom out. There's lots of different things going right around it.
Yeah. Well. The more you know, the more you know. I just figured something out. Like there is no pain and there is no gain if you don't experiment and you learn something new, because we were live on two platforms at the same time. I think like our live stream got messed up in the end.
Sorry for all of my talking like we won't be airing it. I guess we will. So thank you for watching the Infinite Creative Podcast. If you have nothing else to add, Fitz, I just want to say to everyone, keep trying stuff. Live your life like a sim.
Yeah, let's go. That's the spirit. On that note, have a good one, guys.